For centuries, the alchemist hunched over his bubbling cauldron in a smoke-filled chamber, convinced that if he applied enough heat to a lump of lead, the universe would reward his labor with gold. He failed. Generation after generation, these learned men of mysterious science poured their lives into stone laboratories, chanting formulas, consulting ancient manuscripts, and manipulating physical matter, and they produced nothing but ash and disappointment. Yet across the very same cobblestone street, a different kind of man was performing a genuine miracle. He took an invisible idea, sketched it onto paper, recruited people who believed in the vision, and built something from nothing. He created actual gold, not through magic, but through a principle so precise and so powerful that it looked like sorcery to everyone who witnessed it. This is the story that Napoleon Hill spent 20 years trying to decode. Commissioned by the steel titan Andrew Carnegie himself, Hill embarked on what became the most extraordinary study of human achievement ever conducted. He interviewed over 500 of the wealthiest, most influential men in American history, men like Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, John D. Rockefeller, and Carnegie himself. He sat in their offices, walked through their factories, studied their habits, and dissected the architecture of their minds. And what he discovered was not a secret kept in a vault or a formula locked in a safe. It was something far more elusive, far more powerful, and far more accessible than any physical treasure. It was a single mental principle, a shift in the nature of thought itself. Hill called it the transmutation of desire, not the management of desire, not the cultivation of desire. The transmutation, the alchemical conversion of an invisible mental state into a physical, tangible reality. Every industrialist, every titan, every man who built an empire from the ground up had performed this same internal operation. They had taken the raw material of a simple want and subjected it to a process so intense, so focused, and so unrelenting that it changed its very molecular form. The wish became a fire. The fire became a plan. The plan became gold. What the laboratory alchemist could never achieve with his physical furnace, these men achieved effortlessly within the furnace of their own minds. Hill studied them all and realized this was not accident. This was a lost principle, hiding in plain sight. Consider for a moment the sheer weight of human wishing. Every single day, millions of people wake up and whisper to themselves, or to the universe, or to no one in particular, that they would like to be wealthier, more successful, more free. They buy lottery tickets and imagine what they would do with the winnings. They scroll through images of magnificent homes and gleaming automobiles and think, someday. They attend seminars and read motivational quotes and nod their heads in agreement with every principle of prosperity they encounter. And then they return to their lives unchanged. The wish evaporates before it can take any form. It rises like steam from a cup of tea, warm for a brief moment, then dissolved into the cold, indifferent atmosphere of daily reality. This is the disease Napoleon Hill diagnosed with surgical precision, and it is the reason why the vast majority of people who understand the theory of wealth never actually build it. Hill was not a gentle physician when it came to this diagnosis. He did not coddle his reader with soft reassurances or vague inspirational language. He was brutal because he understood that the truth about wishing had to hurt before it could heal. A wish, by its very nature, carries within it a secret permission to fail. When you say, "I would like to be rich," you are simultaneously acknowledging that you might not be, and that acknowledgement is a back door through which all your energy silently escapes. The subconscious mind, that vast and powerful processor operating beneath your waking awareness, is not fooled by the surface performance of desire. It hears not what you say, but what you mean. And when you mean, "I hope," it files that hope under the category of fantasy and continues running the existing program of your financial reality without interruption. The universe, as Hill understood it through his study of the greatest achievers in history, is not a wishing well. It does not lean down to hear your quiet prayers and respond with benevolent gifts. It operates instead like a vast and impersonal machine, one that responds only to a very specific input. That input is what Hill called definiteness of purpose, and it is the precise opposite of a wish. A definite purpose is not a preference, It is not a goal written in a journal and forgotten by the following Tuesday. It is a state of consciousness so heated, so compressed, so electrified by emotion and absolute certainty that it crosses a threshold, the threshold between vapor and fire. Once that threshold is crossed, the mind shifts from passive hoping into active, relentless, mechanically precise pursuit. This is the shift. This is the lost principle. And if you have never experienced it, you have never truly begun. What you are about to encounter in this exploration of Napoleon Hill's deepest teaching is not another motivational summary of Think and Grow Rich. If you have read the book and still find yourself wishing, instead of transmuting, it is precisely because the one principle that animates every other principle in the book has not yet been fully grasped. Every technique Hill offers, autosuggestion, the mastermind, the specialized knowledge, the sixth sense, every single one of these tools is inert without the foundational energy that powers them. They are sophisticated instruments in an orchestra that cannot play without the conductor. That conductor is the burning desire, transmuted from a passive wish into a living, breathing obsession that governs your every waking thought and shapes the very landscape of your subconscious programming. In this exploration, we will abandon the comfort of wishing forever. We will trace the exact mechanics of the one mental shift that separates the man who reads about wealth from the man who builds it. We will follow the process Hill documented not as philosophy, but as engineering, a precise, repeatable internal operation that every one of his 500 subjects had performed, whether they knew it consciously or not. You will understand not just what the transmutation of desire means, but precisely how it occurs within the architecture of your own mind. You will see how the vague, shapeless cloud of a financial dream is subjected to internal heat, pressure, and emotional intensity until it condenses into something hard, sharp, and unmovable, something that no circumstance, no failure, no setback can dissolve. And you will leave this experience not with another wish, but with a torch. Hill spent 20 years studying the men who built the industrial world, and the single most consistent thread running through every one of their stories was not their intelligence, not their connections, not their timing, and not their luck. It was the ferocious, uncompromising, almost irrational intensity with which they pursued a single financial objective. They did not hope to succeed. They had decided to succeed, and in that decision, that precise, irrevocable internal decree, the alchemy had already begun. The lead was already becoming gold before a single physical action had been taken. This is what we are here to understand. This is the promise of everything that follows. There is a distinction in the world of thermodynamics that illuminates everything Napoleon Hill was trying to say about the nature of desire. When water exists as vapor, it occupies enormous space but exerts almost no measurable force on any surface it encounters. It drifts, it disperses, it responds entirely to whatever currents happen to move through its environment, carrying it in one direction and then another without any internal resistance. But subject that same water to focused compression and directed energy, and something remarkable happens. The vapor becomes a concentrated, high-pressure jet capable of cutting through solid steel. The substance has not changed. The molecular composition is identical. What has changed is the state, the intensity of organization, and the directionality of force. This is precisely the difference between a wish and a burning desire, and Hill understood it not as a metaphor, but as a literal description of what happens inside the human mind. A wish is thermal vapor. It contains within it the genuine energy of human longing, real emotion, real aspiration, real awareness of what could be, but it has no shape, it has no container. It expands to fill whatever mental space you give it, which means it is always too thin, too dispersed, and too weakly pressurized to do any useful work against the solid resistance of the real world. When you say to yourself, "I wish I were wealthy," you release a cloud of warm, pleasant emotional energy into the atmosphere of your consciousness. And within minutes, that cloud has been diluted by the 1,000 other thoughts and worries and distractions that populate a typical waking mind. The wish has no anchor. It has no walls. It cannot hold its own heat long enough to accomplish anything, and so it cools and disperses and vanishes, leaving behind only the faint, melancholy residue of another unfulfilled dream. Now consider what Hill observed in the mind of Henry Ford. Here was a man who, by every conventional measure of early 20th century business, had no right to succeed. He lacked formal education. He lacked significant capital. He had already failed in previous business ventures. The experts of his time told him with confident authority that the moving assembly line was impractical, that the Model T was a fool's dream, and that the internal combustion engine would never replace the horse as the primary vehicle of American transportation. And Ford listened to all of this and proceeded with a ferocity of purpose that bordered on the clinically obsessive. He did not wish to build his automobile empire. He had decided with a totality of internal commitment that left no room whatsoever for any alternative outcome, that it would be built. The desire was not vapor. It was a blowtorch. This is the image Hill returns to again and again throughout his work, because the blowtorch is the most honest mechanical analogy for what a transmuted desire actually does inside a human being. A blowtorch does not spread its heat gently and evenly across a wide surface, warming everything pleasantly without changing anything fundamentally. It concentrates every unit of thermal energy into a single, brutally focused point of intensity, and at that point, the resistance of even the hardest material simply ceases to be a factor. The metal that would stop a hammer, that would laugh at a chisel, yields completely to the sustained, focused, superheated application of directed energy. And this is exactly what a burning desire does to the obstacles that stand between a human being and a specific financial objective. The obstacles do not disappear. They simply stop being relevant. What makes this shift mental rather than merely motivational is a crucial distinction that most readers of Hill miss entirely. The transmutation of desire is not about getting excited. Excitement is temporary. Excitement is vapor with a brief spike in temperature. The transmutation is a permanent state change, the kind that happens in chemistry when a substance crosses its phase transition point and can never return to its previous state without a complete reversal of conditions. When Hill says a desire must become burning, he is not prescribing an emotional technique for your morning routine. He is describing a threshold that, once crossed, fundamentally reorganizes the operating priorities of your entire mental and neurological system. You do not feel the desire occasionally. You are the desire constantly, because it has become the primary lens through which you process every experience, every conversation, and every opportunity that enters your awareness. The biological reality of this shift is something modern neuroscience has begun to confirm in language. Hill did not have available to him, but would have recognized immediately. When a goal or objective is held in the mind with sufficient emotional intensity and repetition, the reticular activating system, the brain's primary filtering mechanism, begins to reorganize the hierarchy of what information it allows into conscious awareness. Your brain processes approximately 11 million bits of sensory information per second, and your conscious mind receives only about 40 of them. Which 40? The ones your reticular activating system has been trained to flag as relevant. A wish is not emotionally intense enough to retrain this filter, but a burning desire, held with obsessive consistency, charged with genuine emotion and repeated with unwavering certainty, begins to literally reprogram the filter itself. Suddenly the world appears to offer opportunities and pathways that were invisible before, not because they are new, but because your mind has finally been instructed to see them. This is why Hill insists, with a firmness that can seem almost unreasonable to the casual reader, that the desire must be specific to the point of precision. It is not enough to desire wealth in the abstract. You must desire a specific amount of money, by a specific date, in exchange for a specific service or value. The specificity is not an administrative detail. It is the mechanism by which the vapor is compressed. Vague desire for more money is like trying to fire a blowtorch with no nozzle. The energy exists, but it dissipates in all directions before it can reach the temperature required for any real work. The moment you specify the exact sum, the exact date, and the exact value you intend to provide in exchange, you have installed the nozzle. You have given the desire a shape, and a shaped desire can be aimed. Consider the profound implication of this for the millions of people who have spent years working on their mindset, and reading books about wealth without ever experiencing the shift Hill is describing. The issue is almost never a lack of desire in the broadest sense. Most people deeply, genuinely want financial freedom. The issue is that their desire has never been subjected to the compression required to change its state. It remains vapor, warm, sincere, emotionally real, but fundamentally unable to do the mechanical work of transmutation. And the tragedy is that the gap between vapor and fire is not a matter of talent, intelligence, or privilege. It is a matter of a single internal decision, made with a completeness and a ferocity that the person has simply never allowed themselves before. The fire is available. The fuel is already present in the form of human longing. What is missing is the act of focusing it. Hill frames this act of focusing as a decision, but it is not the kind of decision most people are accustomed to making. Most decisions, even important ones, are made with a silent clause attached, an unspoken, unless it gets too hard, or unless a better option appears. These are not decisions in the sense Hill means. They are preferences dressed in the costume of decisions. A true decision in Hill's framework is an act of mental surgery. It removes the alternative. It does not simply choose option A over option B. It eliminates option B from the architecture of possibility entirely, so that the mind, finding no retreat available, has no choice but to direct every unit of its creative energy toward the single remaining path. This is the mental shift, not a mood, not a morning ritual, a permanent, irreversible internal restructuring. The men Hill studied understood this instinctively, even if they could not always articulate it in the precise language he developed. Carnegie did not try to build a steel empire. Ford did not attempt to revolutionize transportation. Edison did not hope to master the secrets of electricity. Each of these men had crossed, at some identifiable point in their careers, the threshold from preference to obsession, from vapor to fire. And once that threshold was crossed, the behavioral consequences were immediate and unmistakable. They worked with a different quality of energy. They recovered from setbacks with a different speed. They attracted collaborators and resources with a different magnetism. Because people can sense the difference between a man who is trying and a man who has already decided. The latter does not ask for permission from the world. He moves through it as though the outcome is already settled, because inside his own mind it is. This brings us to one of the most powerful and least discussed aspects of the transmutation process, its effect on the perception of time and difficulty. When desire exists as vapor, every obstacle encountered along the path to the goal is experienced as evidence. Evidence that the goal is too difficult, that the timing is wrong, that perhaps the goal was not realistic to begin with. The obstacle feeds the doubt, and the doubt reduces the temperature of the desire, and the cooler desire encounters the next obstacle with even less energy than it brought to the first. This is the downward spiral that characterizes the experience of most people who attempt ambitious financial goals without first achieving the transmutation. They lose steam, not because the goal was wrong, but because the fuel was insufficient. A wish cannot sustain combustion through the inevitable winter of failure and frustration. But the man whose desire has been transmuted into fire experiences the identical obstacle in a fundamentally different way. The obstacle is not evidence, it is not a message from reality about the viability of the goal. It is simply a problem to be solved, a technical challenge standing between the current position and the already certain destination. The fire does not diminish in the presence of obstacles. If anything, it intensifies, because the resistance confirms that the path is real, that the goal has weight, that the challenge is worthy of the obsession. This is not a psychological trick or a matter of positive thinking. It is the natural behavioral consequence of having genuinely crossed the phase transition point from wish to burning desire. The goal is no longer something you want, it is something you are. There is a moment in every great financial story, every story Hill documented and every story that has been documented since, when the protagonist stops being a person pursuing a goal and becomes instead a force moving toward an inevitable outcome. This moment is the transmutation. You can identify it in retrospect by asking a simple question. Was there ever a point at which this person seriously considered abandoning the objective? For the wisher, the answer is almost always yes. Multiple times, in fact, with the abandonment usually dressed up as being realistic or pivoting strategically. For the man who has transmuted his desire, the honest answer is no. Not because the path was easy, not because there were no moments of doubt or despair, but because the option of abandonment had been permanently removed from the available responses to difficulty. The desire had been locked in. This locking in is what separates the philosophy Hill presents from every generic motivational framework that preceded and followed it. Hill is not asking you to be more positive. He is not asking you to visualize more consistently. He is not even asking you to work harder, though harder work is inevitably one of the results. He is asking you to perform a specific, definable internal operation on the nature of your desire, to take it through a process of emotional intensification, specific definition, and absolute commitment until it crosses the phase transition point and becomes something qualitatively, categorically different from what it was before. This operation, once successfully performed, does not need to be repeated each morning. It does not need to be sustained by willpower or discipline, because it has become the fundamental organizing principle of the mind that performs it. The fire does not need to be rekindled, it simply burns. Why must the desire be burning rather than merely present? This question sits at the exact center of everything Hill was trying to communicate, and the answer requires a precise understanding of the most important and most misunderstood component of human mental architecture, the subconscious mind. Most people relate to their subconscious the way they relate to an old heavy vault embedded in the floor of a building they own but have never fully explored. They know it is there. They have read about its importance. They understand in the abstract that it contains enormous power and that accessing it would change everything. But they do not know how to open it, and so they stand above it, dropping polite requests through the floorboards and wonder why the vault never responds. The reason is simple and unsparing. You cannot knock politely on a vault door. You need the right combination, delivered with sufficient force to open it at all. Hill's discovery about the subconscious mind was not that it exists. Philosophers and psychologists had discussed its existence long before he wrote his masterwork. His discovery was about the precise conditions required to communicate with it effectively. The subconscious is not a passive receiver waiting patiently for instructions from your conscious mind. It is an active, enormously powerful processor that has been running a specific program, your existing financial reality, for years, perhaps decades, with tremendous efficiency and zero interest in being interrupted. It will not accept a new set of instructions simply because your conscious mind has decided it would be nice to be wealthy. It requires those instructions to arrive in the only format it can process, the format of intense, emotionally charged, persistently repeated conviction. Anything less is simply filtered out as noise before it can reach the processing level where real change occurs. Think of the subconscious mind as an institution rather than a machine, a vast, ancient institution with its own culture, its own momentum, and its own deeply embedded sense of what is normal and true. Institutions do not change because someone fills out a form requesting change. They change when a force powerful enough to disrupt their existing momentum appears and sustains itself long enough to reorganize the institution's internal sense of what is inevitable. The burning desire is that force. A wish is a politely filled out form. It will be received, acknowledged, and filed in a drawer where it will have no effect whatsoever on the actual operations of the institution. But a desire that has been transmuted, charged with emotional intensity, repeated with obsessive consistency, and backed by an absolute uncompromising certainty, is not a form. It is a force of reorganization, and the subconscious, ultimately, must respond to it. This is the reason Hill places so much emphasis on the role of emotion in the process of auto-suggestion, which we will examine in greater detail later. Emotion is not the decoration on the thought. It is the carrier signal. When a thought is held in the mind without emotional charge, it remains in the purely cognitive layer of mental activity, the layer that is highly visible to conscious awareness, but has relatively little influence over the deeper programs that govern your beliefs about what you are capable of, what you deserve, and what the natural shape of your financial life should look like. But when a thought is fused with genuine, intense emotion, with the visceral feeling of already possessing the desired outcome, it descends from the cognitive layer into the affective layer, which is the layer that directly interfaces with the subconscious programming. This is why Hill insists that you must not just state your desire, you must feel it as though it has already been achieved. The subconscious mind, Hill teaches, does not distinguish between a vividly imagined reality and an actual one. This is not mysticism. It is a functional description of how the mind's deeper processing systems operate. The subconscious does not have access to the present moment sensory data that your conscious mind uses to verify what is real and what is not. It operates on the programs installed by past experience and by whatever is fed to it, with sufficient emotional intensity and repetition to be accepted as genuine input. A man who sits twice daily with his eyes closed, reading aloud his precise financial goal with genuine burning conviction, feeling the weight of the money in his hands, seeing himself providing the service, experiencing the reality of the achieved objective, is not performing a spiritual ritual. He is sending data. He is feeding new programming to a system that will, once it accepts the new program as its operating reality, begin to reorganize every available cognitive resource toward making the imagined reality actual. The question naturally arises, why is the desire specifically required to be burning rather than merely consistent? Could not a moderate, steady desire accomplish the same programming function if applied with sufficient persistence? Hill's answer, drawn from his observation of 500 high achievers and confirmed by what we now understand about the neurological requirements for lasting change, is a definitive no. The depth of penetration into the subconscious is a function of emotional intensity, not just repetition. Their thought repeated 1,000 times with low emotional charge will create a shallow impression, influential perhaps, but easily overwritten by the far more emotionally intense experiences of daily life, setbacks, rejections, and the steady drumbeat of a world that is largely indifferent to your financial aspirations. Only a desire that burns with genuine, sustained emotional intensity creates impressions deep enough to survive contact with reality and actually begin to reshape it. The great industrialists Hill studied did not practice desire twice a day for 30 minutes and then return to ordinary mental life for the remaining 23.5 hours. Their desire was not a scheduled activity. It was a constant atmospheric condition, the emotional weather of their inner world, present in every conversation, every decision, every moment of apparent rest. Edison is reported to have worked for days without sleep in the pursuit of a specific breakthrough, not because discipline compelled him to, but because the desire was so fully burning that stopping felt more uncomfortable than continuing. Carnegie reportedly structured his entire social and professional life around the single organizing objective of building the greatest steel operation the world had ever seen. This was not obsession in the pathological sense. It was the natural behavioral expression of a desire that had successfully penetrated the subconscious and reorganized the mind's fundamental priorities from the inside out. This internal reorganization has a specific and observable consequence that Hill identifies as one of the most reliable signs that the transmutation has genuinely occurred: the disappearance of the experience of effort in the pursuit of the goal. This sounds paradoxical, because the men Hill studied worked with extraordinary intensity and for extraordinary duration. But they did not experience that work as effort in the way that people pursuing a wish experience the effort of disciplining themselves to continue. Effort, in the psychologically costly sense, is what happens when you are forcing yourself to do something that your deeper programming does not endorse. It is the friction between conscious intention and subconscious resistance. Once the subconscious has been successfully reprogrammed by a burning desire, once the goal is accepted at the deep level as the inevitable direction of the person's existence, that friction disappears. The work becomes expression rather than obligation. The pursuit becomes identity rather than strategy. Consider the profound implication of this for how you currently relate to your own financial goals. If the pursuit of those goals feels like a constant, exhausting act of self-discipline, if you must regularly motivate yourself to keep going, regularly remind yourself why the goal matters, regularly fight the temptation to return to the comfortable mediocrity of a life without the aspiration, then the desire has not yet been transmuted. It is still vapor. The fact that you continue to pursue it with discipline and willpower is admirable, but it is not sustainable, and it is not the mechanism Hill is describing. Willpower is finite. Discipline requires maintenance, but a desire that has penetrated the subconscious requires neither willpower nor discipline to sustain itself, because it has become the path of least internal resistance rather than the path of greatest. This is the difference between a person who is working toward wealth and a person who has, in the language of Hill's formula, already begun to become wealthy at the level of mind. The vault door, then, is not opened by persistence alone, though persistence is required. It is opened by the precise combination of specificity, emotional intensity, and absolute faith, three elements that, when combined in the right proportions and applied with the right consistency, generate the specific vibrational frequency, to use Hill's own language, that the subconscious recognizes as an instruction rather than a wish. Faith, in Hill's framework, is not a religious concept. It is a technical one. It is the absence of doubt at the operative level, the state in which the conscious mind has been so thoroughly aligned with the desired outcome that it no longer generates the contradictory signals that cancel out the programming attempts before they can reach sufficient depth. Most people's subconscious programming efforts fail, not because they are insufficient in intensity, but because they are undermined in the very next moment by thoughts of doubt, unworthiness, and realistic skepticism, all of which hit the vault door like counter-commands, neutralizing the forward progress before it can accumulate into a genuine change of program. This is why Hill places faith, not as a preliminary suggestion, but as an absolute prerequisite, at the center of the transmutation process. You cannot program the subconscious in two directions simultaneously and expect a coherent output. The man who spends 20 minutes each morning affirming his financial objective with burning conviction, and then spends the next 8 hours in a mental state of doubt, worry, and self-limiting belief, is not making net progress towards subconscious reprogramming. He is running in place, adding input with one hand and erasing it with the other. The burning desire must be sustained not just during the formal practice of autosuggestion, but as the underlying emotional climate of the entire day. This is what Hill means when he describes the men he studied as living in a state of constant, high-temperature pursuit. They had not simply decided to want something. They had become something, a human consciousness organized entirely around a single, superheated, subconsciously embedded conviction of inevitable success. What happens once the subconscious accepts the new program? Hill describes the result in terms that have occasionally caused skeptics to dismiss him as a mystic, but which become entirely rational when understood through the lens of the reticular activating system and the creative function of the deeply programmed mind. Once the subconscious has been impregnated, Hill uses this word deliberately. With the burning desire at sufficient depth and intensity, it begins to function as an active agent of the goal rather than a passive recorder of existing reality. It begins to connect information, pattern match across previously unrelated domains, and generate what Hill calls hunches or inspired plans, sudden, clear, specific ideas about precisely how the desired financial outcome can be achieved. These are not random inspirations. They are the output of a massively parallel processing system that has been given a clear directive and has been allowed to work on the problem at depths that conscious thought cannot access. The subconscious does not return vague encouragement. When it has been properly programmed with a burning desire, it returns plans. This final point is perhaps the most important technical truth in all of Hill's work, and it is the one that most fundamentally distinguishes his system from generic positive thinking. The transmutation of desire is not about creating a pleasant mental state that attracts good things through cosmic correspondence. It is about activating the full computational power of the human mind, a power that operates almost entirely below the threshold of conscious awareness, and directing that power with laser precision toward a specific financial objective. The burning desire is the instruction. The superheated emotion is the carrier signal that ensures the instruction reaches sufficient depth to actually reprogram the processor. The faith is the absence of countercommands that would interrupt the programming. And the subconscious, once genuinely reprogrammed, begins to do what it was always capable of doing, but was never properly directed to do. It solves the problem of achieving the financial goal with the full staggering intelligence of a mind operating at its complete capacity. This is the alchemy, not the transformation of lead into gold by mystical external force, but the transformation of ordinary human consciousness into an instrument of extraordinary, focused, creative problem-solving power. To understand why Napoleon Hill's principle of burning desire functions as the irreplaceable foundation of all wealth-building philosophy, it is worth stepping back to examine the broader landscape of wisdom from which Hill's contribution emerges. Some years before Hill published his masterwork, a quiet and largely overlooked writer named Wallace Wattles produced a small extraordinary book called The Science of Getting Rich. In it, Wattles articulated what he called the certain way, a precise mode of thinking and acting that, when adopted with consistency and clarity, he claimed would inevitably lead a person toward the creation of wealth. The certain way is an engine of remarkable sophistication. It describes how to hold mental images of desired outcomes, how to express genuine gratitude for what already exists, how to move with faith and purpose through every interaction and activity of daily life. It is, in the most honest assessment, a complete and functional philosophy of prosperous action. But Wattles, for all the precision of his engineering, left one critical question unanswered. Where does the fuel for this engine come from? An engine, no matter how exquisitely designed, is an inert structure without fuel. The certain way requires a person to act with unwavering faith and focused intention across the entire landscape of daily life. In business dealings, in personal interactions, in creative work, in the face of setbacks and delays and the inevitable grinding frustration of ambitious endeavor. This is not a casual demand. It is an enormous, sustained expenditure of mental and emotional energy that cannot be maintained on the basis of intellectual agreement alone. You can read Wattles and think, yes, this makes sense, I will act this way, and last approximately 2 weeks before the cold friction of reality has worn down your resolve and the certain way has become, once again, a philosophy you admire rather than a life you actually live. Because the certain way, applied with the cheap, thin fuel of a mere wish or a theoretical commitment, runs out of energy at precisely the moment it is needed most, at the first serious failure, the first major obstacle, the first moment when the desired outcome seems genuinely, definitively out of reach. Napoleon Hill's burning desire is not a competing philosophy to Wattles's certain way. It is the high-octane fuel that makes the engine run at the temperature required to do real work. When your desire has been genuinely transmuted, when it has crossed the phase transition from vapor to fire and embedded itself in the subconscious as an operative conviction rather than a conscious preference, then the certain way is no longer an act of discipline. It becomes the natural expression of the person you have already become, inside your own mind. You act with faith not because you are trying to act with faith, but because the alternative, acting with doubt, has been so thoroughly incompatible with your subconscious self-image that it simply does not arise as an option. You maintain your mental image of the desired outcome not because you are practicing a technique, but because the image has already been burned into the programming layer of your mind at a depth that makes it continuously present to your awareness without any conscious maintenance required. The practical consequence of this understanding is transformative for anyone who has previously encountered the certain way and found it inspiring, but ultimately unworkable in the sustained application it demands. The failure was not a failure of the philosophy, it was a fuel failure. The engine was sound, the tank was empty, and the tank can only be filled by the one process Hill identifies: the deliberate, specific, emotionally charged, faith-backed conversion of a financial aspiration from a wish into a burning desire. Once that process has been completed, once the desire has been genuinely superheated and subconsciously embedded, the energy required to act in the certain way stops being a matter of will and becomes a matter of overflow. The fire burns so hot and so continuously that the warmth it radiates is naturally expressed as the kind of confident, grateful, purposeful, faith-filled action Wattles describes. The burning desire does not supplement the certain way. It enables it. It makes quitting, the single most common reason for failure in every ambitious endeavor ever attempted, not a decision that requires heroic resistance, but a psychological impossibility that the mind simply cannot generate as a genuine option. Consider what happens when a person with a burning desire encounters the first, second, or 10th serious failure on the path to their financial objective. The failure is real. The setback is concrete. The resources lost may be significant, the time spent may be irretrievable, and the evidence that the goal is beyond reach may appear overwhelmingly convincing to any objective outside observer. But the person whose desire has been transmuted does not experience the failure as evidence about the goal. He experiences it as information about a specific approach, information that the subconscious, already programmed with the burning desire, will process and use to generate a better, more refined plan. He does not need to manufacture optimism or force himself to maintain faith. The faith is structural, not effortful. It is embedded at the subconscious level where it does not require maintenance because it is not subject to erosion by surface-level experience. This is why Hill's subjects kept going when every logical signal said to stop. Not because they were irrationally stubborn, but because the fire was not fed by logic. It was fed by the subconscious conviction that the outcome was already determined, that the only remaining variable was the path, not the destination. James Allen, the quiet English philosopher who wrote As a Man Thinketh at the turn of the 20th century, gave the world one of its most enduring and most frequently quoted insights into the relationship between thought and circumstance. His central teaching was both simple and staggering in its implication. Your external reality is, to a degree far greater than most people are comfortable acknowledging, a direct reflection of the quality, the consistency, and the dominant emotional character of your inner mental life. The man who harbors thoughts of poverty, resentment, and self-limitation will find those thoughts expressing themselves in the poverty, resentment, and limitation of his external circumstances. The man who cultivates a mind of strength, clarity, and purposeful aspiration will find that quality of mind eventually expressing itself in a life of corresponding strength, clarity, and achievement. Allen called this the inner citadel, the fortress of deliberate, disciplined mental cultivation that a person must build if he intends to live a life determined by his own vision rather than by the random pressures of his environment. The citadel metaphor is worth dwelling upon because it carries within it an important architectural truth about what mental discipline actually requires. A citadel is not just strong, it is specifically designed to withstand assault from the outside. It is built with the explicit understanding that forces will come, storms, armies, prolonged sieges, and that the integrity of the structure must be maintained precisely when those forces are at their most intense. The mental citadel Allen describes is not a pleasant state of mind that you maintain when life is comfortable and flowing well. It is the specific, deliberate architecture of thought that you construct for the purpose of remaining unshaken when life is difficult, when the evidence is discouraging, and when every practical voice in your environment is advising you to abandon the vision and return to the safety of a smaller, more conventional ambition. Building this citadel requires consistent, diligent, daily mental work, the kind of work Allen describes with the same quiet insistence that Wattles brings to the practice of the certain way. But here again, the critical question of fuel and protection arises. Allen's citadel is a structure of extraordinary potential power, but it is vulnerable to a specific and common form of attack that its architect did not fully address: the attack of the inadequately fueled desire. A man can build Allen's citadel with admirable diligence, can cultivate his thoughts, guard his inner life, practice deliberate mental discipline every single day, and still find that when the first genuine storm of financial crisis or professional failure arrives, the citadel's walls begin to tremble, not because the discipline was insufficient, not because the philosophy was flawed, but because the desire that should be housed within the citadel is not burning hot enough to heat the walls from the inside, and a citadel whose interior is cold will always, eventually, be overcome by a sufficiently prolonged and determined external siege. This is where Napoleon Hill's burning desire performs a function that Allen's system, taken alone, cannot provide. The burning desire is not just a tenant in Allen's mental citadel. It is the furnace at the citadel's center, the source of heat and light and energy that makes the entire structure not just resistant to external assault, but actively hostile to it. When the burning desire burns at full intensity inside the protected architecture of a cultivated, disciplined mind, something remarkable occurs. The ordinary relationship between the citadel and the world outside it begins to reverse. Instead of the citadel primarily serving a defensive function, keeping the storms of anxiety, doubt, and discouragement from overwhelming the inner vision, it begins to serve an offensive one. The heat generated by the burning desire begins to radiate outward, warming and inspiring everyone who comes into contact with the person who carries it. The citadel is no longer a bunker. It is a forge. The philosophical synthesis that emerges from reading Hill and Allen together is more powerful than either alone. Allen teaches you how to build and maintain the structure of a cultivated, purposeful mind, how to clear the debris of resentment and fear and self-defeating thought patterns, how to establish the habit of holding clean, strong, constructive mental images as the dominant weather of your inner life, how to live in consistent alignment between your thinking and your deepest aspiration. Hill teaches you what to put at the center of that cultivated mind, what specific fire must burn there for the structure to fulfill its highest purpose and generate the specific material outcomes that both men understood to be the natural expression of a rightly ordered consciousness. Together, they describe the complete architecture of a mind built not just to survive the storms of financial ambition, but to transmute them, to use every assault of difficulty and every siege of failure as additional fuel for the fire burning at the center, until the obstacle itself becomes the accelerant, and the very forces that were meant to extinguish the dream are pressed into the service of its fulfillment. The weak man, and Hill uses this designation not as a moral judgment, but as a precise technical description, carries a desire into the storms of financial pursuit without first housing it in any citadel of mental discipline and without first ensuring it has been transmuted from vapor into fire. The first storm disperses the vapor immediately. He is left standing in the ruins of an aspiration, wondering what went wrong, convinced that the world does not reward dreams. But the man who has built Allen's citadel and placed Hill's burning desire at its center experiences the identical storm from a position of structural integrity and energetic abundance. The storm cannot reach the fire. The fire, in fact, grows more intense in response to the storm, because a mind that has been properly built and properly fueled interprets every assault on its vision as confirmation of the vision's significance, as evidence that what is being pursued is real, valuable, and worth the full expenditure of human capacity. This is not optimism. This is the engineering of a consciousness designed to use resistance as fuel, and it is the complete picture of what both Allen and Hill read together in the light of each other's wisdom were always pointing toward. There is a moment in the study of every great financial achievement, and Hill documented hundreds of them, when the story reveals a single, irreversible act that preceded everything else. Not the first investment, not the first product, not the first successful sale, but a moment of burning the boats. The historical precedent Hill invokes is well documented. The warrior who lands on enemy shores and, rather than securing a line of retreat, orders his own ships destroyed. The message to his army requires no eloquence. There is no return, there is no fallback, there is no contingency. The army now has precisely two available futures, victory or oblivion. And in that complete elimination of every alternative, something extraordinary happens to the quality and ferocity of the army's commitment. The energy that would have been quietly, unconsciously reserved for the possibility of retreat is now fully, irrevocably redirected toward the single available path. The boats are gone. The decision at last is real. Hill applies this principle to the pursuit of financial achievement with an urgency that his most casual readers often resist, because it requires the abandonment of something that feels not just practical, but responsible: the backup plan. In a culture that celebrates hedging, diversification, and the wisdom of keeping options open, the instruction to destroy your plan B sounds like the advice of a reckless gambler rather than the counsel of the most thorough student of success in history. But Hill's argument is not emotional, it is architectural. A plan B is not a safety net, it is a subconscious expectation of failure. Every time you formulate an alternative path, if the business doesn't work out, I can always go back to my old job, you are installing, at the deepest level of your mental programming, a signal that the primary path is not fully trusted. And the subconscious, which is listening to everything, hears this signal and calibrates your commitment accordingly. You cannot burn at full intensity while keeping one hand on the fire extinguisher. The mechanism by which a plan B undermines the transmutation process is subtle but absolute. Human attention and creative energy are finite resources. When the subconscious holds two possible futures as equally viable, the success scenario and the fallback scenario, it distributes processing power between them. The problem-solving capacity, the pattern recognition, the creative insight, the capacity for inspired planning that Hill attributes to a properly programmed subconscious, all of these are functions of a mind that has been given a single, undivided directive. A mind that has been given two directives, one of which is the implicit directive of, and if this fails, prepare for the alternative, is a mind operating at divided capacity. The fire burns at half temperature. The transmutation is incomplete, and a desire that has not completed its transmutation will behave under the pressure of real-world adversity exactly like a wish. It will evaporate at precisely the moment it is needed most. The practical act of burning the boats looks different for different people, and Hill is careful not to prescribe a single behavioral formula. For the aspiring entrepreneur, it may mean setting a definitive date after which the corporate salary, the warm, comfortable fallback, is no longer available. For the investor, it may mean committing capital with a level of calculated conviction that makes the return a practical necessity rather than a pleasant bonus. For the professional, it may mean declaring publicly and irrevocably a specific achievement target that the community around them will now expect to be fulfilled. In every case, the act serves the same function. It converts the financial goal from a preference into a structural necessity, from something you intend to achieve into something you cannot afford not to achieve. And in that conversion, a new quality of mental energy becomes available that was simply not accessible while the escape route remained open. This energy is what makes the difference between the person who tries and the person who succeeds. There is a deeper wisdom embedded in Hill's burning of the boats that goes beyond the simple removal of the retreat option. When you eliminate Plan B, you also eliminate the mental habit of hedging, the constant energy-consuming practice of maintaining parallel mental models of your future, one successful and one not. This hedging habit is among the most destructive forces acting on the concentration of desire, because it requires that you perpetually allocate a portion of your imaginative capacity to the failure scenario. Every moment spent mentally rehearsing what you will do if the primary goal does not materialize is a moment in which the subconscious is receiving two contradictory signals, the signal of burning desire for the goal and the signal of practical preparation for its absence. These signals cancel each other. The net programming that reaches the subconscious is not the strong, unambiguous directive of a mind fully committed to a single outcome. It is the confused, diluted instruction of a mind that secretly believes, at its operative level, that failure is a genuine and present possibility. Burning the boats is the act of ending this confusion permanently, and in ending it, of releasing the full computational power of the subconscious to work on the problem of success rather than dividing it between success and the management of potential failure. If the burning of the boats is the act of absolute commitment, Then the law of exchange is the act of grounding that commitment in the physical reality of value creation, and without it, the entire edifice of transmuted desire floats dangerously close to the territory of fantasy. Hill is absolutely unequivocal on this point, and it is a point that many enthusiastic readers of his work overlook in their excitement about the mental mechanics of desire. The universe is not a charity. Wealth does not flow toward burning desire simply because the desire exists and burns with sufficient intensity. Wealth flows toward burning desire because the desire, when properly formed, includes within it a specific, honest, and valuable commitment to give something in return for what is sought. The formula is not desire money and the money will come. The formula is desire money, commit to providing specific value in exchange for it, and the mind will find the precise path by which that exchange can be made. The difference between these two formulas is the difference between alchemy and wishful thinking. Hill insists, as part of the foundational mechanics of the transmutation process, that your statement of desire must include an explicit declaration of what you intend to give in exchange for the money you seek, not a vague notion of working hard or providing good service, but a specific identification of the precise form of value, the skill, the product, the service, the creative contribution that you intend to offer to the world in exchange for the specific sum you have targeted. This requirement is not bureaucratic. It is engineering. It is the step that converts the burning desire from an internal psychological state into an external commercial proposition. The step that connects the fire in the mind to the market in the world. Without it, the desire, no matter how intensely it burns, has no vector. It has heat but no direction. It has power but no mechanism for delivery. The specification of the exchange is the mechanism. Why does this specification matter so profoundly at the level of the subconscious? Because the subconscious mind, when programmed with a precise objective, begins to hunt for pathways, and it can only hunt for pathways that are consistent with the complete picture of the objective it has been given. If the objective is, I will accumulate $500,000 by December 31st of next year, the subconscious has been given a destination without a road. It has been asked to solve a problem for which it has insufficient parameters. But if the objective is, I will accumulate $500,000 by December 31st of next year by providing the following specific service to the following specific market, the subconscious has been given a complete problem statement, and the solution space it can explore is now bounded, specific, and navigable. The inspired plans, the creative hunches, the sudden pattern recognitions that Hill attributes to the sixth sense and that modern neuroscience attributes to the default mode network's capacity for creative synthesis, all of these are far more likely to produce actionable, precise results when the problem they are working on has been fully specified. The law of exchange is the completion of the problem specification. There is also a psychological dimension to the law of exchange that deserves careful attention. When you commit specifically to what you will give in exchange for what you seek, you are doing something profound and transformative to your relationship with your own desire. You are removing the last vestige of passivity from it. Though desire that asks only for money, without specifying what will be offered in return, retains a passive quality. A quality of receiving without producing, of acquiring without creating. This passive quality is incompatible with the burning desire at the deepest level, because the subconscious mind of a healthy, integrated person does not fully endorse acquisitions that are not matched by corresponding acts of value creation. There is a part of the human psyche, call it the integrity function, the intrinsic sense of fairness, that resists, at the unconscious level, the receipt of value that is not earned. This resistance manifests as doubt, as guilt, as the subtle feeling of unworthiness that many people experience when they attempt to visualize large sums of money in their possession. The law of exchange dissolves this resistance. When the exchange is specific, honest, and genuinely valued, the mind can endorse the desire without reservation, and an endorsed desire burns incomparably hotter than one burdened by the unconscious friction of feeling undeserved. The final dimension of the law of exchange brings us to the most powerful practical consequence of this principle, the transformation of the financial goal from an abstraction into a service proposition. Money, as Hill observes, and as every serious student of economics understands at the functional level, is not an end in itself. It is a measurement, a unit of recorded value exchange. When you demand $500,000 from the universe without specifying the value you intend to provide, you are demanding a measurement without creating anything to measure. But when you commit to the specific service, the specific skill, the specific contribution that you intend to bring to the world with full dedication and excellence, the money becomes simply the inevitable recording of value created. The focus shifts from, how do I get money, a question that the subconscious cannot productively answer, to, how do I deliver maximum value through the specific vehicle I have chosen, a question that the subconscious, properly programmed with a burning desire, can answer with remarkable creativity and precision. This reframing is not merely semantic. It is the difference between operating as a supplicant to the economic world and operating as a creator within it. And the quality of results that follows from these two operational stances is as different as vapor and fire. Among all the practical mechanisms Napoleon Hill describes for the programming of the subconscious mind, the one he calls autosuggestion is at once the most precisely specified and the most commonly misapplied. The word itself has acquired, over the decades since Hill introduced it, a somewhat mechanical and routine connotation. The daily practice of reading affirmations, of repeating positive statements in the mirror, of maintaining a list of goals on a notepad by the bedside. And while these practices are not wrong in their form, they miss the essential operative element that Hill identifies as the difference between a practice that produces real results and one that produces nothing but a mild, temporary improvement in mood. That element is emotion, not simulated emotion, not the performance of enthusiasm, but the genuine, visceral, physically felt experience of already possessing the desired outcome, of living, even for the duration of the practice, inside the reality of the achieved goal, as though it were a present fact rather than a future aspiration. Hill specifies the mechanism of autosuggestion with an engineer's precision that rewards careful rereading. He instructs that you must take the written statement of your desire, which includes the specific sum, the specific date, and the specific service to be rendered in exchange, and read it aloud twice each day, in the morning upon waking and in the evening before sleeping. These two threshold moments of the day are not chosen arbitrarily. They are the times at which the boundary between the conscious and subconscious minds is most permeable, when the filtering function of the fully awake, fully critical, rational mind is at its least active, and when material presented with sufficient emotional charge has the greatest probability of penetrating to the depth where genuine programming occurs. The reading must be performed with the full force of imaginative investment, seeing the desired outcome as already achieved, feeling the emotion of that achievement as a present reality, allowing the body to respond to the mental image as it would respond to the actual experience. Without this emotional investment, Hill says, the practice is completely without value. Why does the reading without emotion fail to produce results? Because the subconscious mind does not process language. This is the single most important technical fact about subconscious communication that Hill's work implies, and that subsequent research in psychology and neuroscience has confirmed with increasing precision. The subconscious does not receive the semantic content of a sentence and integrate it into its programming. It receives emotional experience, the felt quality of a mental state, and uses that experience as data about what is real, important, and relevant to the organism's survival and well-being. When you read your financial goal statement in the flat, mechanical tone of a person reciting a grocery list, the subconscious receives the emotional signal of boredom and routine and files the entire exercise accordingly. But when you read the same statement with the genuine, full-bodied emotional reality of a person who already has what is described, whose heart rate reflects the excitement of achievement, whose imagination has populated the visual field with the specific sensory details of the desired reality, the subconscious receives an entirely different signal. It receives the emotional signature of a real experience. And to the subconscious, a real experience is a real program. The challenge most people face in applying auto-suggestion effectively is not laziness and not inconsistency. It is the difficulty of generating genuine emotion about an outcome that does not yet exist, and that the rational mind in its honest assessment of present circumstances does not consider highly probable. This is the precise point at which Hill's instruction to cultivate faith becomes not a spiritual directive, but a technical requirement. The mind cannot hold two incompatible emotional realities with equal force simultaneously. You cannot feel the genuine emotional reality of already possessing wealth while simultaneously holding the practical, rational awareness that you currently have very little. One of these emotional states will dominate, and the one that dominates will be the one that receives the greater share of your imaginative investment. Hill's instruction is therefore not to deny the present circumstances. He is not asking for self-deception, but to practice the deliberate, trained redirection of imaginative focus from the present circumstance to the desired outcome, until the emotional reality of the desired outcome becomes more habitually present to your awareness than the emotional reality of the current situation. This redirection is a skill, and like all skills, it develops through practice. The first attempts at auto-suggestion performed with genuine emotional investment will likely be imperfect, interrupted by doubt, diluted by self-consciousness, abbreviated by the rational mind's insistence on returning to the realistic assessment of present facts. This is normal, and Hill does not suggest that the practice must be perfect to be useful. What he does insist is that the emotional investment must be genuine, that even a brief but authentically felt experience of the imagined financial reality is worth more in terms of subconscious programming than an hour of mechanically repeated affirmations delivered without feeling. The key is not the duration or the volume of the practice. It is the depth of emotional authenticity achieved within each session. And that depth increases with repetition, not because the practice becomes easier, but because the subconscious, once it begins to receive consistent signals of a specific emotional reality, begins to make that reality progressively easier to access through the simple mechanism of familiarity. The desired outcome becomes an emotional home that the mind can return to with increasing ease, because the subconscious has begun to register it as a place it knows. The relationship between auto-suggestion and the burning desire is one of mutual reinforcement that Hill describes as the central engine of the transmutation process. The burning desire provides the emotional temperature that makes the auto-suggestion practice potent. You cannot feel nothing about your financial objective and expect the twice-daily reading to accomplish genuine programming. But the practice of auto-suggestion, when performed with genuine emotional investment, also intensifies the burning desire itself, because the mind that regularly inhabits the emotional reality of its desired outcome begins to find that desired outcome increasingly real, increasingly compelling, and increasingly non-negotiable. The practice feeds the desire empowers the practice. And in this feedback loop of intensifying commitment and deepening subconscious programming, the transmutation moves from its early stages of uncertain warmth toward the full, blazing, irreversible heat of an obsession that the subconscious has fully adopted as its primary operating directive. Hill is explicit about the element of faith in this context in a way that demands careful reading. He does not instruct you to pretend to believe what you don't believe. He instructs you to act as though you believe what you intend to make true, and to do so with sufficient consistency and emotional investment that the belief itself is gradually manufactured through the practice of its expression. This is not self-deception. It is the deliberate use of the known plasticity of the subconscious mind to install a new belief by feeding it the emotional experience of that belief in action repeatedly and with feeling, until the subconscious accepts the new belief as its own natural condition, rather than as an imported instruction. Faith in Hill's technical framework is not a prerequisite that you must already possess before beginning the transmutation process. It is an output of the process itself, one that must be seeded through the practice of auto-suggestion before it can be harvested as the natural, effortless certainty of a mind that has been thoroughly and deeply programmed. Read your desire, feel it, Live in it, twice daily, with every fiber of your imaginative capacity. And in time, the faith will not be practiced. It will simply be true. The practical dimension of autosuggestion extends beyond the twice daily formal practice into the quality of thought that Hill prescribes for the rest of the day. The formal sessions are the primary programming events, the moments of deepest, most concentrated subconscious input. But they operate within a broader ecosystem of daily thought, and that ecosystem either supports or undermines the programming they are attempting to establish. A person who practices autosuggestion with genuine emotional investment twice daily and then spends the remaining waking hours in a mental state dominated by financial anxiety, self-doubt, and the repeated contemplation of obstacles is working against himself with extraordinary efficiency. He is adding a minute's worth of deliberate programming to a day's worth of counter-programming, and the net result will be, at best, very slow progress toward the transmutation. Hill's deeper instruction is therefore not just about the formal practice of autosuggestion, but about the cultivation of a general mental atmosphere, the quality of the default thoughts that occupy the mind during the ordinary hours of the day, that is consistent with and supportive of the formal programming being conducted twice each day. When the subconscious mind has been successfully impregnated with a burning desire through the sustained, emotionally charged practice of autosuggestion, when the programming has reached the depth and the temperature required for genuine phase transition, something begins to happen that Hill describes under the remarkable heading of the sixth sense, and which he places at the very apex of his entire philosophical system. The sixth sense is not presented as a mystical gift available only to the especially gifted or the cosmically favored. It is presented as the natural, inevitable output of a mind that has been fully aligned, at every level of its operation, conscious and subconscious, with a specific, intensely desired, emotionally charged objective. It is the point at which the transmutation completes itself, delivering not gold from the air but something even more valuable, the precise, specific, actionable plan by which the gold can be obtained in the real world through real work and real value creation. Hill describes this sixth sense in language that makes modern neuroscientists smile in recognition: the sudden flash of insight, the hunch that arrives without apparent rational precursor, the inspired idea that presents itself fully formed in a moment of quiet or of unexpected connection. We now understand this phenomenon as the product of the brain's default mode network, the system that operates most actively when the conscious, task-focused mind is at rest, and that processes information across an enormous range of domains simultaneously, making connections and generating syntheses that the narrow beam of conscious analytical thought could never achieve working alone. When this system has been given a clear, deeply embedded objective by a properly programmed subconscious, the results of its continuous background processing arrive in consciousness as what feel like intuitions, hunches, or inspired plans, sudden, clear, specific, and accompanied by a quality of certainty that distinguishes them from ordinary speculative ideas. The gold does not appear beneath your pillow. This point must be stated with absolute clarity, because the most common failure in the application of Hill's system is the passive expectation that the subconscious programming and the sixth sense will somehow produce the desired financial outcome without the requirement of immediate, decisive, massive physical action. Hill is unambiguous about this. The inspired plan that flashes into awareness through the sixth sense is not the destination, it is the ignition. The transmutation is not complete until the plan is acted upon, immediately, completely, and with the full force of the burning desire that created the conditions for its appearance. The plan represents the bridge between the internal fire and the external gold. But a bridge is only useful to someone who actually walks across it, and the quality of walking required here is not a cautious, experimental, 1 foot at a time test of the structure. It is the full-speed crossing of a person who has already burned the boats and has no intention of returning to the shore from which he came. This is the moment of completion in the alchemical process Hill has described from the beginning, the moment when the transmutation closes its loop and delivers the result. The desire began as vapor, formless and powerless, It was subjected to the heat of obsessive specificity, the pressure of absolute commitment, the catalyst of emotional autosuggestion, and the protection of a disciplined, cultivated mind. Under these conditions, it crossed the phase transition into fire and burned its way into the subconscious programming layer, where it reorganized the mind's fundamental priorities and unleashed the full creative intelligence of the default processing network. That network, working continuously beneath conscious awareness, generated a plan, specific, workable, and precisely calibrated to the conditions of the real world as the person actually inhabits it. And now, with the plan in hand, the person takes action. Not tentative action, not experimental action. Massive, immediate, committed, fully invested action. The kind of action that only a person with a genuinely transmuted desire is capable of sustaining across the inevitable resistance and difficulty of execution. The process is circular, and the circularity is not a weakness but a strength. The action taken in response to the inspired plan generates results, some successful, some not. The successful results feed the burning desire with the confirmation of its power. The unsuccessful results, processed through the architecture of a mind that has burned its boats, are experienced not as evidence of failure, but as data for refinement. Input that the subconscious will process and use to generate the next, improved version of the plan. The cycle tightens with each iteration. The fire burns hotter with each confirmation. The plans become more precise with each cycle of action and feedback. And the financial goal, which began as a fragile, vaguely defined wish, floating in the uncertain atmosphere of a life without clear direction, moves steadily, inevitably, and with increasing momentum toward the moment of its physical realization. This is the alchemy, not performed in a laboratory, not achieved through mystical formula, but enacted within the living, dynamic, perfectly equipped furnace of the human mind, the only furnace in history that has ever actually succeeded in turning invisible thought into physical gold. The entire architecture of Napoleon Hill's masterwork, stripped to its essential core, is a study in the relationship between internal state and external circumstance, between the quality of what burns inside a mind and the quality of what materializes in the life that mind inhabits. Hill documented 500 men of extraordinary financial achievement and found beneath the infinite variety of their industries, their strategies, their personalities, and their historical contexts, a single unifying truth of such clarity and simplicity that it required 20 years of meticulous observation before he trusted himself to state it plainly. Poverty and wealth are both the children of thought, not the children of circumstance, not the offspring of privilege or timing or luck or market conditions, though all of these play their roles in the surface drama of any financial story. At the foundational level, at the level where the actual determination of a life's financial trajectory is made, the determining variable is the nature, the intensity, and the dominant emotional quality of the thoughts that occupy the mind most consistently and most deeply. This is a conclusion that demands intellectual courage to fully accept, because it carries within it an implication that is both enormously empowering and deeply uncomfortable. That the financial reality you currently inhabit is, to a degree far greater than most people are willing to acknowledge, the physical expression of the thoughts you have been most consistently thinking. The man in financial difficulty is not there because the world is unjust, though injustice exists and must be named. He is there, in the specific texture and shape of his difficulty, because the thoughts that have most consistently dominated his subconscious programming have been thoughts calibrated to produce that level of result. And the man of extraordinary wealth is there, not because the universe favored him arbitrarily, but because, at some point and through some process, his internal state crossed the threshold from wish to burning desire, from vapor to fire, and the creative intelligence of a fully programmed subconscious began delivering the plans and the opportunities and the inspired connections that a mind of that temperature inevitably produces. The only difference, then, between poverty and wealth at the level of thought is the intensity of the desire, not the intelligence of the thinker, not the quality of the education, not the circumstances of the birth, the intensity of the desire. the degree to which the financial aspiration has been subjected to the alchemical process of transmutation until it burns with the heat required to penetrate the subconscious and reorganize the mind's fundamental operating priorities. A weak desire produces weak results with the same mechanical certainty that a small fire produces a small amount of heat. There is no mysticism here. There is only thermodynamics applied to the inner life, the physics of mental energy applied to the problem of external achievement. And the beautiful, democratic, utterly ruthless truth embedded in this physics is that the size of the fire is determined by the person who tends it, not by the wood they were given to start with. Napoleon Hill, in one of the most frequently quoted passages from Think and Grow Rich, states with the calm authority of a man who has spent 20 years confirming what he is about to say, "The starting point of all achievement is desire. Keep this constantly in mind. Weak desire brings weak results, just as a small fire makes a small amount of heat." The simplicity of this statement is deceptive. Its first reading delivers a pleasant, motivational warmth. Yes, of course, desire is important. I will desire more. Wonderful. But this first reading is the reading of a person who has not yet understood what Hill means by desire. Hill does not mean the pleasant warmth of wanting something. He means the reorganizing, subconscious penetrating, boat-burning, emotion-supercharged, obsessively specific internal state that we have been examining in its full architectural complexity throughout this entire exploration. That is the starting point. And it is a starting point that most people have never actually arrived at, which is precisely why most people who read the quote return to their lives without their lives changing. The word starting is as important as the word desire in Hill's formulation. The starting point of all achievement, not the midpoint, not one important factor among many. The starting point, the place from which everything else in the process of achieving a financial objective necessarily originates. You cannot begin at any other point and expect the process to work. You cannot begin with a plan and hope that the desire will develop as the plan unfolds. You cannot begin with a skill and hope that the burning conviction will follow once the skill is demonstrated. You cannot begin with a network and hope that the obsessive clarity of purpose will emerge from the opportunities the network presents. You must begin with the desire, the transmuted, superheated, specifically defined, absolutely committed burning desire. Because without it, every plan will be abandoned at the first serious obstacle. Every skill will be applied without the creative ferocity required to distinguish excellent work from ordinary work. And every network opportunity will be filtered through a mind that lacks the focused intensity required to recognize which opportunities are aligned with the singular, burning objective, and which are simply pleasant distractions. The master's formula, as Hill distills it from 20 years of studying the greatest achievers in history, is not a long list of habits or a complex matrix of strategies. It is a single instruction with multiple implications. Begin with desire. Begin with it deliberately, specifically, and with the full emotional investment that the word burning requires. Begin with the specific sum, the specific date, the specific exchange, the specific statement read twice daily with the genuine feeling of already achieved reality. Begin with the burning of the boats, the elimination of all alternatives, and with the commitment to a value exchange that grounds the desire in the mechanics of the real economy. Begin with the mental citadel that protects the fire from the storms of anxiety and discouragement. Begin with the absolute, practiced, subconsciously embedded faith that the outcome is not possible but inevitable. Begin, in short, with the transmutation of your desire, the alchemy that turns the invisible energy of human aspiration into the cold, hard measurable gold of financial achievement. The master's formula contains within it a profound statement about human nature and human capacity that Hill arrived at not through optimism, but through observation. He did not begin his 20-year study believing that the mind was the primary determinant of financial outcome. He began as an empiricist, following the evidence wherever it led, and the evidence, gathered from 500 of the most financially successful men in American history, led him to a conclusion that would have seemed radical if it were not so thoroughly supported by the data. There is no ceiling on what a human mind can achieve when it has been brought to the temperature of genuine transmutation. The limitations that appear fixed and absolute, the lack of education, the lack of capital, the lack of connection, the lack of talent in any specific domain, are, in the light of Hill's complete body of evidence, not ceilings, but simply the obstacles that a mind operating below the temperature of burning desire cannot yet melt through. Raise the temperature, cross the threshold, complete the transmutation. And the limitations that seemed permanent reveal themselves to be nothing more than the natural resistance of a world waiting to be organized by the right quality of focused, superheated, subconsciously backed human intention. The weak desire brings weak results. This is Hill's thermodynamic law of human achievement, and it is as indifferent to exception as the laws governing the physical universe. But its corollary, the strong desire brings strong results. The burning desire brings extraordinary results. The fully transmuted obsession brings the kind of results that look, to those who observe them from the outside, like the work of extraordinary luck or cosmic favor. This corollary is equally certain, equally mechanical, and equally available to every human being capable of performing the internal operation that Hill spent his life describing. The fire is available. The fuel is present. The furnace of the human mind is already built and ready. The only remaining question is whether you are willing to light the match with sufficient conviction and tend the flame with sufficient ferocity and consistency to complete the transmutation. That is the question Hill poses to every reader. That is the question posed to you now, at the conclusion of this exploration of the lost principle. You have now encountered the complete architecture of the one mental shift that Napoleon Hill documented across 500 lives and 20 years of meticulous study. You have seen the difference between vapor and fire, between the passive, shapeless, subconsciously imperceptible warmth of a wish, and the focused, penetrating, reorganizing heat of a burning desire that has completed its transmutation and embedded itself in the deepest programming layer of the human mind. You have understood why Wattles' engine cannot run without Hill's fuel. You have seen how Allen's citadel, without Hill's furnace at its center, remains structurally admirable, but thermally insufficient. You have traced the precise mechanics of burning the boats, of specifying the exchange, of programming through emotionally invested autosuggestion, and of receiving and acting upon the inspired plan that a fully programmed subconscious delivers with the inevitability of a machine producing its designated output. You have, in short, been given the key, but a key is not an open door. The key must be turned, and the turning requires an act that no philosophy, no teacher, and no guardian of wisdom can perform on your behalf. It requires the single, private, irrevocable internal decision to stop wishing and start burning. To take the specific financial objective that has been living in the comfortable low-temperature zone of your aspirations and subject it to the full force of the alchemical process, to specify it to the point of precision, to charge it with the full force of your emotional investment, to eliminate every alternative, to commit to the exact value you will provide in exchange, and to begin the twice-daily practice of programming your subconscious with the feeling of its already achieved reality. This is not a large external action. It does not require capital, connection, or credential. It requires only the willingness to cross the internal threshold that separates the wisher from the transmuter, to give your desire the heat it needs to become the fire that cannot be extinguished. Burn the boats. This is not a metaphor for recklessness. It is an instruction for completeness of commitment, for the elimination of the mental backdoor through which your energy has been silently escaping every time you made room, in your planning and in your subconscious programming, for the possibility of retreat. The boats represent every plan B, every safety net kept quietly in reserve, every gentle, practical acknowledgement that perhaps the primary objective might not be achieved and that it would be wise to have alternatives. These are the boats. Burn them. Not because failure cannot happen, it can and it will along the path, but because the energy required to manage the psychological infrastructure of a fallback is energy stolen directly from the furnace of the primary desire. Every BTU of mental heat diverted to the maintenance of Plan B is a BTU unavailable for the transmutation. Burn the boats. Commit completely. And discover, as every man Hill documented eventually discovered, that the complete removal of the retreat option does not create vulnerability. It creates an entirely new category of creative resourcefulness that was never available while the option of escape remained. Stoke the fire. This is the daily discipline, not the grinding, willpower-dependent discipline of forcing yourself toward a goal you secretly doubt, but the joyful, energizing discipline of feeding a fire you have already lit and that warms everything it touches. Read the statement. Feel the reality. Inhabit the achieved outcome with your full imaginative capacity twice each day. At the thresholds of sleep and waking, when the vault door of the subconscious is most permeable and the programming most likely to take root at the depth required. And beyond the formal practice, tend the fire throughout the day by maintaining the mental atmosphere consistent with the identity of a person for whom the desired financial outcome is not a hope, but an inevitability. Stoke the fire until it no longer requires stoking, until it has become self-sustaining, self-intensifying, the permanent climate of a mind that has completed its transmutation and is now simply expressing in every thought and every action the gold that was always latent within the desire. Are you ready for the alchemy? The question is not rhetorical. It is the most important question you can answer honestly at this precise moment, because the answer determines whether everything you have encountered here remains philosophy or becomes transformation. The alchemy is real. It has been performed by every person who ever built extraordinary wealth from the invisible raw material of a single superheated, subconsciously embedded, specifically defined, absolutely committed burning desire. It is available to you with precisely the same reliability with which it was available to Ford, to Carnegie, to Edison. Not because you are their equal in talent or privilege or historical circumstance, but because you inhabit the same model of the human mind, equipped with the same subconscious furnace, the same creative intelligence, the same capacity for the phase transition from vapor to fire that made their alchemical achievements possible. The only variable is whether you will perform the transmutation. Write in the comments below, "I transmute my desire." This is not a social media ritual. It is a declaration, a small but genuine act of the public commitment that begins the process of burning the boats. By writing it, you are telling your subconscious, your community, and yourself that you have heard the lost principle, understood its mechanics, and chosen to apply it. You are drawing the line between the person who wished and the person who burns. Let the fire begin. Let the alchemy proceed. And when the inspired plan arrives, when the sixth sense delivers the specific, actionable, precisely calibrated idea that your fully programmed subconscious has been working on beneath the threshold of your awareness, act on it immediately, completely, and with the full force of the desire that is no longer a wish, but a fire. The gold is not in the pot at the end of the rainbow. It is in the transmutation of the desire to find it. It always was. Napoleon Hill knew it. Now you do too.